This is December 13th, advanced class. We're going to learn about outsiders, and apparently we've just discovered what the fox says. Coming up, we have our 9-week assessment tomorrow. Toys for Tots is also finishing up tomorrow. I was trying to figure out who went to the school play so we can get house points. We turned in our book reports today because it's wonderful. If you're at home, it's kind of hard to turn in your book report right now because you're out of luck. It does become a late grade, by the way, if you're not here. That's the drawback unless a parent writes you a note saying it was done. Because it's not fair to the kids who stay up till midnight crying. Your notebook comes due Monday, which in theory should be a pretty easy grade. You have 9 bell works, you have 4 homeworks. Make sure you can go to my website, make sure you have dates and titles, make sure you have all those good things from there. Our checkpoints coming up, we're going to talk about 7 and 8 today, 9 and 10 on Friday, and then the end of the book coming up on Monday. Those are going to be our 3 reading checky points coming up. And so as long as you're to that point, if you've read past that, we'll help you out. Today I'll tell you where you can't go past, and so that'll help guide you a little bit. That's a reminder to me, because I was going through the Shadow Club, which I'm reading with my advanced kids. There was another reference, which I thought you guys would enjoy and pick up on. Once again, wasted on those kids, but that's all right. What page is it? Page 107.
We are the advanced kids. Were we though?
A question I ask all the time. So the Shadow Club is about a club of kids that all get together and they're sort of hanging out and doing things, and they refer to themselves, and it says, so you know, said Darren, I never thought this thing would work. I mean, I never thought we'd all actually, you know, like each other. I'll say, said Abby, look at this group. We've got a jock, a brain, a nerd, a soc, a brat, a lawyer, and the gopher. Who'd have thought we'd all get along? And I got all excited, of course, because the reference being, and so the soc here.
What's their gopher?
And there's a geek.
The gopher is a name for a kid who has to go get things. They make fun of him. It's about a group of kids who are all second best at something because other kids are always better than them, so they form a club to get revenge on people. And then someone finds out about the club, and they start framing them for all these horrible things, and they end up trying to kill somebody.
There's always a killer. I'm telling
Another
you.
book about death, and you got excited?
But Mr. Brovicast, does a child die in it?
Yes, a child does die in it.
I'm in.
I know exactly how your guys' thinking goes.
That is cool.
I have ruined you guys for literary education forever. Job done. Let's see, there. Gone for the Wind. Let's see. The Sunrise Poem, which got to our Staying Gold. By the way, good conversation yesterday. Also, 6th period went a completely different direction than you guys, which made for 2 fun conversations because they had different. You guys' conversation for Staying Gold was the idea of happiness and innocence, and they defined Staying Gold as staying true to yourself, which had nothing to do with innocence or happiness. So their conversation about how to stay gold affect things was a whole different direction, which made teaching kind of fun. I know. I'm like, you're all idiots, just stop talking. I just kept slapping children, it was great. Then, for our conversations we get into through 7 and 8, if you've read past chapter 8, 1, that's fine. 2, if you get down with the whole book, you can choose the extra credit, that is fine with me, or not, that's why it is optional, it's a crossword word find kind of thing. If you really want it, by the way, hashtag hint hint is on my website. And you can just download your own copies, or you can get a paper copy from me. But I do tell you, there are spoilers on there. So if you've not finished it, then when you get to, like, you know, number 25 across, what are the name of the aliens that come down and kill all the kids? And you're like, oh no, now I know they're called Florgaborns. And then that kind of ruins things for you. Now you know what Florgaborn means. But for the rest of you, that's up to you. If you have read past chapter, did you just ask her about the Florgaborns?
I asked her if they're actually aliens that came.
No, I mean, they're called Hispanics because they're from other places, right? So
Spoiler!
Sorry, I'm a spoiler. Florida Horns! Let's see, from there. If you have read past chapter 8, this is the part where they're in, the Pony Boy and 2-Bit go visit the kids in the hospital. And then it ends with Pony Boy and Cherry talking outside the hospital. We've not gotten to a rumble or anything that happens after the rumble, if that helps you with things occurring in the book.
Jungle.
Speaking of rumbles, since that's coming up, what is a rumble, aside from the thing that our cheerleaders talk about at football games?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been to way too many games. Buddy!
Wow.
It's a fight.
More than a fight, but you're on the right track. It does involve fighting, but like just you and me throwing down and punching each other. An intense battle. Well, you and I could have like a battle with swords and throwing monkeys at each other like goes over for weeks and
Today,
weeks.
first period,
It would
kids were
still
throwing each other
probably
across the
monkey
room,
scary,
and they got
but would still not actually be a rumble. Gavin?
It's between like two groups.
And that's the big difference. Between just Buddy and I, when Buddy gets all of her friends, I get all my teacher friends, I'm like, let's throw down! And then we all get our swords and monkeys, and that's when the whole fight begins. And so a rumble is a preset fight between two groups of people, usually because you're trying to solve some problem. I'm sure this probably happens to you guys all the time. You're like, sounds like Saturdays. And so that's where you get your groups together and you go rumble. That's what they're talking about. Which now brings deeper meaning to the whole cheerleader thing when you're out there and you're like, the Charger rumble. Because see, you're bringing your football players and their football players, or your cheerleaders and their cheerleaders, and you're like, we're going to throw down, rumble down. And so that's where the whole thing is. Where essentially, it's like a metaphor for a battle or a fight, or I don't know, learning or something. Yes, dear.
How do you challenge someone to a fight? Do you just like spit at their shoe and say, let's fight?
It's been a while since I've been in my own personal fight. I think everyone has their own personal choice. My personal ones involves taking a white glove and slapping them across the face.
Is that how you got arrested?
No, it's because replace glove with car and other person with pack of dogs.
You did?
Oh
my gosh! Did you kill the dog?
Horrible! Horrible! Shame on you!
The dogs jumped on my car and I got really angry.
You're on crime watch.
Oh my.
You need animal abuse.
Honey, no!
Now I just have a baseball. Yeah. Which isn't nearly as exciting. Ooh! And a Wookiee. But that's it.
I can throw a baseball really hard. Oh, in a homer.
Rip the projector off the ceiling.
Back to our issues here. So we did Who Found It at the Church way back when.
Yeah.
And they go to Dairy Queen. And then we had the big decision that Johnny makes, which is to
Turn himself in.
And then they get back to the church. And they're fired. Church.
Kids dying.
More dying.
Time out for a moment. Stupid computer.
Can I be like,
Kids get thrown out of windows. I think Ava would. They're stupid.
It is, but it does exactly what I tell it to, and it's supposed to be smarter than me.
I like that part where the kids got
The
thrown.
computer can't be smarter than me. What good is it?
I think if everybody in this room had a fight against it, I think I
Did we throw the computer instead of the child this time?
I think I would die for it.
I'd swing from
Actually, no, that's not true.
Spider-Man's head.
I think I would probably I think I would quit if I had one.
First one I would do.
I know what happened. Throw that. Oh, I'm sure you
Hi, future Holly.
What is it you did not tell me what the sides were? It's kind of hard to know.
From this side of the room to this side of the room.
Now back to me.
Is that when?
Page 111. Ooh, this part. On page, this is where they're now back home. We've had the dairy and the fact that they might get split up. Ooh, how does Ponyboy feel about dairy?
He's all happy.
Pretty good.
You can go Twitch.
Oh, he's all happy because he like loves him, and Derry started crying, and Ponyboy was all like.
And that's where we have that big momentous heartbreak moment. He's like,
Barry, he loves me.
and so he goes running up. He's like, but wait a minute, now we're going to get separated. No, curse you, life. And he gets all upset, and he goes back home, and then falls asleep, and he's all sleepy. The next morning, he wakes up. His friends come over, and they start like all hanging out, talking, as apparently teenagers do. And I'm going to read this section on page 111. Urge, speak quickly.
Oh, I thought I was going to answer that. Never mind then.
I'm going to read it, and then you can answer it.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a thing that pops up which seems to be confusing because they have a party coming up. And this is about towards the bottom on page 111 where it says, you going to take Sandy to that party? I asked, just to be saying something. But then there was instant silence. I looked around. What? What's the deal? Soda Pop was staring at his feet, but his ears were reddening. No. She went to live with her grandmother in Florida. What? How come? Look! Steve said, surprisingly angry. Does he have to draw you a picture? It was either that or get married. And her parents almost hit the roof at the idea of her marrying a 16-year-old kid. 17, Soda said softly. I'll be 17 in a couple of weeks. Oh, I said, embarrassed. I mean, Soda was no innocent. I'd been in on bowl sessions, and his bragging was as loud as anyone's, but never about Sandy. Not ever about Sandy. And so, it's a little confusing about, Mr. Brovicast, what's going on there? Solid question. Apparently, a poor choice was made. And because this poor choice was made, Sandy no longer lives there. Sandy had to go elsewhere. by putting it in the most school-appropriate terms possible.
Oh, Lord.
Do you know what poor choice was made?
And baby.
That is correct. Soda Pop and his girlfriend were friendly, and because of that, now that they were friendly, there's now going to be a third person brought into this particular world. And so now because of that, their parents give two choices. You either get married because of friendliness, or you go live somewhere else until this third person joins the world. And of course, how old is Soda Pop?
17.
And what kind of prospects does he have for the future?
None.
Right. And so apparently her parents frowned on that, and so they made her go live with her grandparents, and so she disappears. Sandy's about the same age, 16, 17. No, she's all, because he says at one point, he's like, she's our type of girl. And so he, like way back in chapter 2, and he was like introducing, he was talking about the fact that Soda Pop loves Sandy. He's like, he's our type of girl. And so she's also a greaser, but then the fact that that's what happened. So it was a little bit of that whole, I'm proud of you for not knowing what was going on there. It's okay, because it means you're still golden.
No, I
Now, of course, like, Mr. Brovicast, I just lost a little gold. I apologize for ripping away some of your gold, but in some cases you could say that education equals loss of gold. Let's see. Ooh. Page 115, Randy and Ponyboy start talking at the Tasty Freeze. It's where Ponyboy and Two-Bit are going out for a walk. They go to the Tasty Freeze, then Randy shows up. Once again, who is Randy?
He's Bob's
He's
friend.
also Bob's best friend. And of course, their first worry when Randy shows up is what are they thinking Randy's going to do? But we can't, because that's when Two-Bit says, hey, you can't start anything before the Rumble. Them's the rules. Because apparently when you beat someone up and use like weapons, that there's actual rules involved. And he's like, hey, I'm not here to start any fights because that's total ridiculous. He says, I'm just here to talk. And that's where Randy and Ponyboy start hanging out and talking. And Randy admits something. And what does Randy admit?
He doesn't want the Rumble.
Why does he not want the Rumble?
Because he's
scared
scared
someone die.
And so he says, listen, people get hurt in these things. People could die in these things. He's like, beating people up was all fun and games until someone died. And my best friend is dead. I don't want that to happen anymore. But he's worried. Because if Randy doesn't show up to this Rumble, what are people going to think?
He's a chicken.
That he's chicken and he's scared. If he does show up, what is he going to think about himself?
He's guilty and he shouldn't be doing
So he's like, I don't know what to do. And of course, who's he telling this to?
Ponyboy.
Ponyboy, the person who's helped responsible for the death of his best friend. Why does he choose Ponyboy to talk to out of anyone?
Because Ponyboy understands
He's experienced everything.
And that comes back to the fact that Ponyboy is just sort of a nice person. And Randy's like, I don't know why I'm talking to you. You're just some random greaser. And then right after he calls him a greaser, what does Randy do?
I didn't mean that. Sorry, kid.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't mean to call you a greaser. And we find out, wait a minute, socias are humans too? And the fact that Randy's apparently not a complete jerkwad, he's just another confused kid. It's weird. It's like all these confused kids making poor choices. Yeah.
Is Randy the one that drowned?
We don't know exactly. He was definitely involved in it, but there was like 4 or 5 of them there. And so all we know is at the time, Bob told David to grab him and begin. But, when you've been drinking and people are getting haircuts and washing hair, everyone wants to join in. It's like a party. So there's every chance he might have been there. We just know he was not the one to get stabbed. So, yeah, on that part. And then we got to Ponyboy and Two-Bit see Johnny, and the doc lets them. I'm going to read that scene real quick because of why the doctor lets them go see them on page 119.
Oh, I remember.
Me too, that's why I'm going to read it. So they're
Yeah,
beginning of chapter 8, they go to the hospital, and they say, the nurses wouldn't let us see Johnny. He was in critical condition, no visitors, but Two-Bit wouldn't take no for an answer. That was his buddy in there, and he aimed to see him. We both begged and pleaded, but we were getting nowhere until the doctor found out what was going on. Oh, let him go in, he said to the nurse. He's been asking for him. It can't hurt now. And of course, what is that foreshadowing?
He
He's
did.
gonna die.
That's something, that's why he's like, it can't hurt now, because apparently things are not going well. Mr. Brovicast, you ruined. No, it's the very next line. Two-Bit didn't notice the expression in his voice. It's true, I thought numbly, he's dying. And so we find out that apparently things are not going well for Johnny, and that's why he's like, go ahead, let him go in. Hashtag scary sadness. Who is in the hospital after the fire?
Cherry.
Johnny and?
Cherry.
Not Cherry.
Johnny,
Dally. So Johnny and Dally are in there. Why is Dally in there?
Because
His arm.
Nicely done the whole saving and trying to pull people out. Apparently he burns and hurt his arm. And so that's why he's still in there. How does the Johnny hospital visit go? When he goes to visit Johnny, what does Johnny request?
not the
Go with the wind.
Why does he want the book?
Because he likes.
Nicely done. Any other?
One more thing.
Yeah,
Grease.
nicely done.
Oh,
He
yeah.
says, I want to grease my hair so I can still feel like I'm a greaser. Twitch?
He also requested that, well, I'm guessing I don't know. Yeah. He requested that his mom wasn't allowed to come in.
And, because my next question. Why does he request that? What kind of relation does he have with his mom?
He
He
doesn't
hates
have
it.
one.
Yeah, and that was his whole, and of course that's where we get the interaction with Johnny and his mom. We get to see it through Two-Bits and Ponyboy's eyes, and that's where Two-Bit starts to throw down and yell at the mom. He's like, "You're a horrible lady! Oh my God!" And he starts yelling at her too, and she's like, "I hate all of you!" And he's like, "Well, you hate life, lady." And so they have the whole yelling. We find out once again. Now we know why Johnny is such an unhappy person. But at least Johnny's dad's a good person, right?
No.
Yeah, he likes to beat him with a
Yeah, once again, that's where the beating with the 2x4 comes in. And so that's, in case you're not sure, they say beating with a 2x4, this is a 2x4. So when Johnny gets beat by his dad, this is what he uses. I have this here exactly for this part of the story, because I always had kids who knew what a 2x4 was, so I brought one in. Because I,
Is that the real reason?
Protect yourself.
and that is absolutely the story I'm sticking with legally on camera. Yes.
Or is that like, it's like
That's the
printed?
It's the printed.
You
It
should write
says,
some
That
down.
is
it
child
says
blood.
stud. It was just talking about me, but I don't know. It's weird.
What is that red stuff that kind of looks like blood?
No,
Could
lust.
play trick you.
I was using it to hold up a car. And then
When
we
you
get
have
to
that pack of dogs.
Dally has a request when they go visit him. And what is Dally's request?
The switchblade.
The
Oh, yeah.
switchblade.
Oh, yeah.
Which, once again, just kidding, I don't have a switchblade. And so I would never have a switchblade. That would be wrong. And so the switchblade. Why does Dally want the switchblade?
To cut himself out. Right? No.
No.
I don't remember.
Does he put it on his
But basically, yes. So then he can make sure he gets a chance. Tomorrow, 9-week assessment. Thursday, chapter 9 and 10. Run away, Suskavai.